The sand on Talvex 9 was not like Earth sand. It was made of broken crystals that caught the light of 3 distant suns and threw it back in painful flashes. Hana walked carefully across the desert, her boots crunching with each step. Behind her, 6 other humans from Earth followed in a line. They all wore protective suits because the air here was thin and cold. Hana was 23 years old and she studied dead civilizations. Her job was to dig up old things and learn from them. She had been doing this work for 2 years now, traveling from planet to planet, but Talvex 9 was special. This planet used to be home to the Dracovians, a species that everyone thought was gone forever. Her brother Taiyang walked beside her. He was the team leader and the one who kept everyone safe. He was 5 years older than Hana, and he worried about her constantly. Right now his face was serious behind his helmet glass. "We should not go much further," Taiyang said. "The energy readings are getting strange." Hana checked her scanning device. He was right. Something was producing power beneath the sand, and it had been there for a very long time. "Just a little more," she said. "I think we are close." They had been searching for 3 days. Old records from 800 years ago mentioned a temple in this region. The Dracovians had built it before their civilization collapsed. Most people thought the temple was just a legend, but Hana believed it was real. Kyung, their communications expert, came running up from behind. Well, his name was actually Dae-hyun, but everyone called him by his middle name. "Hana, the readings just jumped. Whatever is down there just woke up." Taeyang immediately raised his hand and the whole team stopped walking. "Everyone stay alert," he ordered. He turned to Hana. "Sister, maybe we should go back to the ship and get more equipment." But Hana was already moving forward. Her scanner was showing something big just under the surface. She knelt down and brushed sand away with her gloved hands. The crystals scattered, and underneath she found smooth black stone. "It's here," she whispered. The team gathered around her. Together they cleared more sand away. The black stone turned out to be the top of a dome. It took them 2 hours to dig enough to find an entrance. The doorway was tall, maybe 5 meters high, and covered in symbols that glowed faintly blue. Jiwon, their medical expert and biologist, scanned the symbols. "These are Dracovian words. Very old style. I think this says, 'Tomb of the Traitor Prince, Traitor Prince.'" Hana had read about this in old texts. The last royal family of the Dracovians had a son who disagreed with his father. He wanted to stop the wars that were destroying their planet. The father called him a traitor and made him disappear. No one knew what happened to the prince after that. "This might be his grave," Taeyang said quietly. "We should document it and leave." "Graves are sacred." Hana shook her head. "The power readings are too strong. If this was just a grave, there would be no energy signature." She touched the door and it responded to her hand. The symbols glowed brighter and the door began to open with a deep grinding sound. Cold air rushed out from inside. The team turned on their lights and looked into the darkness. A long hallway stretched down into the ground. The walls were covered in more glowing symbols and paintings that showed dragons flying through space. They walked down carefully. Hana counted her steps. 300 steps down and the hallway opened into a huge room. Their lights could not reach the ceiling. In the center of the room stood a pillar of shimmering energy, and inside that energy was something alive. It was a dragon. Not like the small earth lizards, but a real dragon from the old stories. It was enormous, maybe 20 meters long from nose to tail. Its body was covered in scales that might have been beautiful once, but now looked cracked and dry. Its wings were folded against its sides. Its eyes were closed. "By all the stars," Jiwon whispered. "It's a Dracovian. A real one." The dragon was not dead, but it was not fully alive either. The energy field around it pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. Hana could see its chest moving up and down, breathing so slowly that each breath took a full minute. Taeyang grabbed Hana's arm. "We need to leave now. This could be dangerous," but Hana could not look away from the dragon. Even dying entrapped, it was magnificent. Its face looked noble somehow, sad and tired. As she watched, its eyes opened just a little bit. They were golden and they looked directly at her. Around the room, old machines suddenly hummed to life. Screens flickered on showing Dracovian text. Kyung ran to the nearest screen and pulled out his translation device. "It's trying to communicate," he said. The screens all showed the same word over and over in different languages. Kyung's device beeped as it translated. "Water," he said. "It's saying water, please. Water." The dragon's mouth opened slightly. Its voice came out as a whisper through the machines, translated into human language. Thirsty. So thirsty. 800 years, please. Hana felt her heart break. This creature had been trapped here for 8 centuries. The stasis field kept it alive but could not give it what it needed. It had been thirsty for longer than most human nations had existed. She reached for her canteen without thinking. Taeyang grabbed her hand. Hana, no. We do not know what will happen. This is a Dracovian. His people conquered and enslaved dozens of species. They destroyed worlds. Look at him, Hana said quietly. He is not conquering anyone. He is dying. This could be a trap, Taeyang insisted. The stasis field could be keeping something dangerous contained. Jiwan was scanning the dragon from a distance. His vital signs are critical. Severe dehydration. Organ damage. Even if we freed him and took him to our ship, he might only live for days. Hana pulled her hand free from her brother's grip. She walked toward the energy field slowly. My name is Hana, she said loudly. I am human. From Earth. Can you understand me? The dragon's eyes focused on her. The machines translated his whispered response. Human, yes. I understand. Please, one drink, just one. Then I can die in peace. The Dracovians were enemies of the galaxy, Taeyang called out. They killed millions. Why should we show mercy? The dragon's eyes closed for a moment. When he spoke again, his translated voice was full of pain. I tried to stop them. My father, the Emperor, he destroyed our world. I opposed him. He sealed me here as punishment. I am the traitor prince. I wanted peace. They wanted conquest, please. I am so thirsty. Hana made her decision. She stepped closer to the energy field. Up close, she could see gaps in it where the old technology was failing. She opened her canteen and reached through one of the gaps. Hana, stop, Taeyang shouted, but she was already pouring water into her hand and stretching it toward the dragon's mouth. The first drops fell onto his tongue. The dragon shuddered. His eyes opened wide, and then the entire temple began to shake. From the walls, hidden panels slid open. Ancient weapons emerged, pointing at all the humans. Red targeting lights appeared on everyone's chest. The machines around the room screamed alarms in the old Dracovian language. The dragon saw what was happening. Despite his weakness, he lifted his head and roared. The sound was so loud it made Hana's bones vibrate. He roared a command in his own language. The weapons stopped moving. The alarms went quiet. The targeting lights disappeared. The dragon lowered his head again and looked at Hana with his golden eyes. Thank you, the machines translated. You showed mercy. My defenses thought you were attacking, but you were helping. Thank you, small human. Thank you. Hana was shaking, but she poured more water into her hand. The dragon drank it carefully, each drop precious. Taeyang slowly lowered his weapon. He looked at his sister and then at the dragon. Something in his expression changed. He walked forward and stood beside Hana. What is your name? He asked the dragon. Kyung, the dragon whispered. I was Crown Prince Kyung, last of my line, last of my people. We need to get you medical help, Hana said. We have a ship. Can we free you from this field? Kyung's eyes showed something that might have been hope. You would help me? After what my species did. Hana looked back at her team. Half of them looked afraid. Half looked curious. She looked at her brother. Taeyang sighed deeply and then nodded once. Yes, Hana said to Kyung. We will help you. The team worked for 6 hours to understand the stasis field. Kyung tried to help them by explaining through the translation machines, but he was so weak that he could only speak for a few minutes before needing to rest. His voice came out in broken sentences that the machines struggled to translate properly. Kyung studied the control panels with his device. The young man was good with languages and technology. He had learned 5 alien languages in just 2 years of working with the Deep Survey Corps. Now he was learning a 6th language, one that nobody had spoken in 800 years. The field is powered by the planet's core, Kyung explained to the team. It was designed to last forever. The Emperor wanted to make sure his son suffered for a very long time. Hana felt sick hearing that. What kind of father would do this to his own child? She looked at Taeyang and felt grateful that her brother, despite his worries, always protected her with love rather than cruelty. Jiwan set up her medical scanners near the field. She was a serious woman who rarely showed emotion, but even she looked troubled by what her equipment was showing her. His internal organs are failing, she reported. 800 years in stasis without proper nutrients or water. has caused damage that might be permanent. Even if we free him and provide full medical care, I am not sure he will survive more than a few days. Then we have to try, Hana said firmly. But not everyone agreed. 3 members of the team stood together on the other side of the room. They were talking quietly among themselves and looking nervous. Finally, one of them, a man named Hyun, who was their engineer, walked over to Taeyang. "Sir, we need to talk about this," Hyun said. "The Dracovians were monsters. They conquered 42 different species. They turned entire planets into slave camps. They destroyed civilizations just to take their resources. My grandmother's people were enslaved by them. She died when I was young, but she told me stories. Terrible stories." Taeyang listened carefully. He was a good leader because he always listened to his team. "I understand your concerns, Hyun. My history books say the same things. But what do we do with that information? This dragon says he opposed his own people. He was punished for it. Or he is lying," Hyun said. "Maybe he is a war criminal who got caught. Maybe his people put him here for a reason. If we free him, we might be releasing someone dangerous." Hana walked over to join the conversation. "He could have attacked us when I got close. Instead, he stopped his own defense systems to protect us. Does that sound like a monster?" "It sounds like he needs us," Hyun replied. "He is smart. He knows that if he hurts us, he dies here. So he acts friendly. But what happens after we save him? What if he recovers and then shows his true nature?" It was a fair question, and Hana did not have a perfect answer. She looked back at Kyung trapped in his energy prison. He was watching them with his golden eyes. Could he hear what they were saying? Did he understand that some of them did not trust him? Jiwon spoke up. "I have an idea. We can put tracking devices in him when we treat him. Small ones that he will not even feel. If he tries anything dangerous, we will know immediately. We can also keep him in a secure medical bay on the ship. He will be our patient, not our guest." This seemed to help. Hyun and the other worried team members nodded slowly. "That sounds reasonable," Hyun admitted. "But I still think we should contact command first and ask for permission." Taeyang shook his head. "If we contact command, they will tell us to wait. They will send a military ship. That will take weeks. Look at him. He does not have weeks. Then we are making a command decision without authority," Hyun said. "That could end our careers." "I will take responsibility," Hana said immediately. "This is my choice. If there are consequences, I will face them." Taeyang put his hand on her shoulder. "No, little sister. We share this. I am the team leader. The decision is mine." He looked around at everyone. "We came out here to learn about other species and other cultures. The Dracovians are part of galactic history. Right now we have a chance to save the last member of that species and learn directly from him. Yes, there is risk. But is it not worth taking that risk to gain knowledge and maybe to show that humans value life, even when it is complicated?" His words seemed to convince most of the team. Even Hyun, though he still looked uncertain, finally nodded. "All right. But we do this carefully, and if he gives us any reason to think he is dangerous, we stop everything." "Agreed," Taeyang said. Kyung had been studying the stasis field controls for hours. Now he looked up with excitement. "I think I understand it. The field has a shutdown sequence. But there is a problem. When it shuts down, all the power in this temple will cut off. That includes life support, gravity control, and the structural supports." "Meaning what?" Taeyang asked. "Meaning the temple might collapse," Kyung translated. "We would have maybe 5 minutes to get out after I start the shutdown." Jiwon looked worried. "Can he even walk? In his condition?" "I do not know," Kyung admitted. "But I think I can modify some of our equipment to create a floating stretcher. We can use the anti-gravity units from our cargo lifters." It took another 3 hours to prepare everything. They brought equipment down from the surface. Yan and Kyung worked together to build the stretcher. Jiwon prepared emergency medical supplies. Taeyang planned their escape route and timed how long it would take to get back to the surface. Finally, everything was ready. The team gathered near the stasis field. Hana walked up to where Kyung the dragon could see her clearly. "We are going to free you now," she said. "But the temple will start to collapse. We need to move quickly." "Can you do that?" Kyung's eyes showed fear and hope mixed together. "I will try. But I have not moved in 800 years. I do not know if my body will work properly." "We will help you," Hana promised. She turned to Kyung the human. "Start the shutdown." Kyung typed commands into the control panel. The machines around the room began to hum louder. The stasis field started to flicker. "Shutdown sequence initiated," Kyung called out. We have 5 minutes. The energy field around Prince Kyung grew brighter and brighter until it was almost too bright to look at. Then suddenly it disappeared completely. Without the field supporting him, Kyung the dragon fell forward. Taeyang shouted Hana's name in fear. The dragon was massive and falling right toward her, but Kyung managed to catch himself. His front legs hit the ground hard and he steadied himself, his head stopping just above Hana. He was breathing heavily. Thank you, he gasped. You freed me. After so long. Thank you. We need to move, Taeyang shouted. The ceiling was starting to crack. Dust fell like rain. Kyung tried to walk, but his legs would not work properly. 800 years of not moving had made his muscles weak. He managed 3 steps and then collapsed. The team rushed forward with the floating stretcher. It was barely big enough for him, but they managed to get him onto it. The anti-gravity units strained under his weight, but they held. Hyun activated the controls and the stretcher lifted off the ground. Go, 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 Taeyang ordered. They ran for the hallway. Behind them, huge pieces of the ceiling crashed down. The glowing symbols on the walls went dark as the power failed. They climbed the 300 steps as fast as they could, pulling the stretcher behind them. Kyung the dragon lost consciousness halfway up. Ji-won checked his vital signs while they moved. He is alive, but barely. We need to get him to the ship immediately. They burst out of the temple entrance just as the entire structure collapsed behind them. A huge cloud of crystal dust exploded into the air. The team kept running across the desert toward their ship, which was parked 2 kilometers away. It took them 40 minutes of hard running to reach the ship. By the time they got there, everyone was exhausted. They hauled Kyung into the cargo bay and then into the medical section. Minji, the ship's captain, met them in the medical bay. She was a stern woman in her 50s who had been flying survey ships for 30 years. When she saw the dragon, her eyes went wide. What in the name of Earth have you brought onto my ship? She demanded. A patient who needs help, Hana said, still breathing hard from the run. That is a Dracovian. Do you have any idea what you have done? This could be classified as an act of war by some species. The Velans, the Korthi, the Hanish, they all suffered under Dracovian rule. If they find out we are harboring one— He opposed his own people, Taeyang interrupted. He is not a war criminal. He is a victim. Minji looked at the unconscious dragon and then at her crew. She could see that they had already made their choice. She sighed deeply. Fine, but this is on all of you. Ji-won, do what you can to keep him alive. Everyone else, get cleaned up and write your reports. I need to figure out how to explain this to command. Ji-won and her medical team worked through the night. They set up hydration systems, nutrient feeds, and monitors. True to her word, she also implanted tracking devices that would let them monitor Kyung's location and vital signs at all times. Hana stayed in the medical bay, watching. Around midnight, Kyung's eyes opened. He looked around in confusion until he saw her. Still here, he whispered. The medical computers translated his words. You stayed. Of course, Hana said. You are under our protection now. Why? Kyung asked. Why would humans help me? My people would have enslaved yours if they had found Earth. Hana thought about her answer carefully. 3 days passed and Kyung grew stronger. The hydration therapy and nutrients that Ji-won provided began to heal his damaged body. His scales, which had been dull and cracked, started to show hints of their original deep blue color. He could move his head and neck now, though his legs were still too weak for him to stand. The ship Starbound Hope remained on Talvex 9, while the team documented the collapsed temple and sent preliminary reports to Earth. Captain Minji had decided to delay informing command about Kyung until they could provide a full analysis. She knew this would cause problems later, but she wanted to give her crew time to understand what they had found. Hyun spent more time in the medical bay than anyone expected. The young engineer who had been most afraid of Kyung now sat beside the dragon's bed for hours, asking questions about Dracovian technology and history. Kyung answered everything patiently, his voice growing stronger each day. Your people built ships that could cross the galaxy in weeks, Hyun said with fascination. Our fastest ships take months to cover the same distance. How did you do it? Kyung's eyes showed sadness. We took the technology from others. The Horth species invented the quantum fold drive. We conquered them and stole it. The Velan species created living metal that could repair itself. We enslaved them and forced them to produce it for our ships. Almost everything my people claimed to have invented, we actually stole. But you must have invented something yourselves, Hyun said. We invented efficient ways to destroy and to conquer, Kyung replied bitterly. We perfected weapons. We designed prisons that could hold entire populations. We created stasis technology that could make someone suffer for centuries. These were our contributions to the galaxy. Hana entered the medical bay carrying a data pad. She had been studying the old records they had recovered from the temple. I found something interesting, she said. According to these records, your people were not always conquerors. The earliest Dracovian texts talk about exploration and learning. They mention partnerships with other species. What changed? Kyung was quiet for a long moment. Fear, he finally said. We discovered that the galaxy was dangerous. There were species that wanted to harm us. We decided that the best defense was to control everything around us. My grandfather started the expansion. My father made it an empire. By the time I was born, conquest was our entire culture. Anyone who questioned it was called weak or traitorous. Like you, Hana said gently. Yes. I studied the old texts that you mention. I learned that my ancestors had different values. When I told my father that we should return to those values, he said I was infected with weakness. He said I was not fit to be crown prince. So he created that stasis field and put me in it. He wanted me to think about my mistakes for 1,000 years. That is torture, Hyun said with anger in his voice. No one deserves that. He was my father, Kyung said simply. In our culture, a father has absolute authority over his children. I broke that sacred law by opposing him. Taeyang entered the bay with Captain Minji. Both looked serious. We need to talk, Taeyang said. All of us. The team gathered in the medical bay. Minji stood at the front with her arms crossed. I just received a priority message from Galactic Command. Word has leaked about what we found. I do not know how, but someone talked. Now multiple species are demanding information. Earth Command wants a full report immediately, and the Velen Republic has sent a fleet to this location. They will arrive in approximately 6 hours. Hana felt her stomach drop. The Velens were one of the species that the Dracovians had enslaved. They had suffered terribly under Dracovian rule. Many Velens still carried genetic damage from the forced labor their ancestors had endured. They are coming for me, Kyung said quietly. They want revenge. I understand. I will surrender myself to them. Absolutely not, Hana said immediately. You did not commit those crimes. I am Dracovian, Kyung replied. That is crime enough for them. And perhaps they are right. Perhaps I should pay for what my species did. That is not justice, Taeyang argued. Justice means being judged for your own actions. You opposed the Empire. You were imprisoned for trying to stop the very things they want to punish you for. Minji looked troubled. I understand the ethics you are talking about. But we also need to think practically. The Velen fleet has ships with weapons that could destroy us easily. If we refuse to hand him over, they might attack. I have a crew to protect. Then we will negotiate, Hana said. We will talk to them. Explain the situation. They have been waiting 800 years for justice, Minji said. I do not think they will want to talk. Kyung tried to sit up but was still too weak. Please, I do not want humans to die protecting me. I am not worth a war. You are worth protecting, Hana insisted. And we will find a way. The next hours were tense. The team prepared arguments and gathered evidence. Kyung provided access to his personal records, which were stored in implants in his body. These records showed his opposition to the Empire. They showed his arguments with his father. They showed his attempts to free slaves and stop the resource wars that were destroying Talvex 9. Jiwan discovered something important in Kyung's genetic structure. He has been modified, she announced. There are changes to his DNA that do not occur naturally. Someone altered him. My father did that, Kyung explained. When I was young, he had scientists modify all the royal family. He wanted us to live longer and be stronger. But the modifications had side effects. They made me more empathetic, more able to understand the feelings of other species. My father saw this as a flaw. I saw it as a gift. It helped me understand that what we were doing was wrong. So your compassion was literally built into you, Hana said with wonder. Your father accidentally created the conscience that made you oppose him. Ironic, is it not? Kyung said with a sound that might have been a laugh. When the Velen fleet arrived, it consisted of 12 warships. They took up positions around the Starbound Hope. Captain Minji received a message demanding that Kyung be handed over. Immediately for trial and execution, she called for a video conference with the Velen commander. The alien appeared on the screen. He had 4 arms, gray skin covered in scars, and eyes that showed centuries of anger. "I am Commander Ixthor of the Velen Republic," he said in harsh tones. "You harbor a Dracovian war criminal. Surrender him now or face the consequences." "I am Captain Minji of the human survey ship Starbound Hope," she replied calmly. "The individual we have rescued is not a war criminal. He is a victim of the Dracovian Empire just like your people. All Dracovians are guilty," Ixthor spat. "They do not deserve mercy. They deserve extinction. If we punish people for the crimes of their species rather than their own actions, we become no better than the empires we oppose," Taeyang said. Stepping into view of the camera, Ixthor's 4 hands clenched into fists. "Do not lecture me about morality, human. My grandmother was worked to death in their mines. My grandfather was used in their experiments. Generations of my people suffered under their claws. This Dracovian will answer for those crimes." "Then put him on trial," Hana said, joining the conversation. "A real trial where evidence is presented and truth is discovered. If he is guilty of crimes, punish him. But if he is innocent, set him free. Is that not what justice means?" Ixthor's eyes narrowed. "You are young and naive. You do not understand what they did." "Perhaps we do not fully understand," Hana admitted. "But we understand that punishing innocent people creates more injustice, not less. We understand that revenge is not the same as justice." "Brave words when you have not suffered as we have," Ixthor replied. At that moment, Kyung's voice came through the speakers. He had connected himself to the communication system. "Commander Ixthor, I am Prince Kyung, son of Emperor Vorkath. I do not ask for mercy. I ask only to speak." The Velen commander's face twisted with rage and pain. "You dare speak? I know what my people did to yours," Kyung interrupted gently. "I have studied the records. I know about the mines and the experiments and the suffering. I know that saying I am sorry means nothing. Words cannot heal wounds that deep. But you should know that I oppose those actions. I tried to stop them. My father imprisoned me for 800 years because I wanted to free your people and make peace." "Lies," Ixthor said, but his voice was less certain. "I have records," Kyung said. "Genetic memories, personal logs. They are available for you to examine. I also have something else, something that might interest the galaxy more than my death." "What could you possibly offer?" Ixthor demanded. "I know where the others are," Kyung said quietly. Everyone in the medical bay turned to stare at him. Hana felt her breath catch. "What others?" Ixthor asked slowly. "The other Dracovians. Thousands of them. Before my father died, he put them in stasis chambers hidden across the galaxy. He wanted to preserve our species so that one day we could rise again. I know where every chamber is located. The information is stored in my genetic memory. If you kill me, that information dies with me. If you let me live, I will help you find them all. Then the galaxy can decide what justice truly means." The silence that followed was complete. Everyone was processing what Kyung had just revealed. Finally, Ixthor spoke. "You would betray your own species? I would give them a chance at redemption." The Galactic Council arrived 4 days later. They came in a massive ship that looked more like a floating city than a spacecraft. With them came representatives from 40 different species, including several whose ancestors had suffered under Dracovian rule. Earth sent Admiral Suyung, a decorated officer known for her skills in diplomacy and negotiation. The trial was set to take place on the Council ship in a chamber designed for exactly this purpose. It could hold thousands of observers and had technology to translate every word into hundreds of languages simultaneously. The entire galaxy would be watching. Kyung was strong enough to walk now, though he still tired easily. Ji-won had done remarkable work healing his damaged body. He could never be as strong as he once was, but he could at least move with dignity. On the morning of the trial, Hana helped Kyung prepare. She had found old Dracovian ceremonial robes in the temple records and had them manufactured. They were deep blue with silver symbols that represented peace and wisdom rather than conquest and war. "You do not have to wear these if they make you uncomfortable," Hana said. "No," Kyung replied. "They are appropriate. These robes were worn by Dracovian philosophers before we became an empire. My father banned them. Wearing them now feels like reclaiming something lost." Taeyang entered the room. "The shuttle is ready." Admiral Su-young wants to brief us before we go to the council ship. They met the Admiral in the Starbound Hope's briefing room. Su-young was a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and gray hair pulled back in a tight knot. She looked at Kyung with open curiosity. "So you are the dragon who has caused such turmoil," she said. "I have read all the reports. Your story is remarkable." "Thank you, Admiral," Kyung said, bowing his head respectfully. "I want to be clear about something," Su-young continued. "Earth is supporting your right to a fair trial, but we are not declaring you innocent. We are declaring that you deserve to be judged by evidence, not prejudice. There is a difference." "I understand," Kyung replied. "I ask for nothing more than fairness." "Good, because you should know what you are facing. The prosecution will be led by Velen lawyers who have spent centuries studying Dracovian crimes. They are very good at what they do. They will try to prove that you are guilty by association, that being royal makes you complicit in everything the Empire did. How do we counter that?" Hana asked. "By focusing on individual actions," Su-young explained. "Kyung, you said you have records proving your opposition to the Empire. We need to present those clearly. We also need to emphasize the genetic modifications that made you more empathetic. And most importantly, we need to address the issue of the hidden Dracovians." Kyung nodded. "I am prepared to reveal their locations and assist in finding them. But I want certain protections." "What kind of protections?" Su-young asked. "I want assurance that each Dracovian found will receive their own trial. No mass executions. No collective punishment. Each individual will be judged by their own actions, just as I am being judged." Su-young smiled slightly. "You learned well from your human friends. That is exactly the position Earth will be advocating for. The Council will likely agree, though some species will resist." The trial began at noon, Galactic Standard Time. The chamber was filled with beings of every shape and size. Some had scales, some had fur, some had skin like humans. Some breathed oxygen, some breathed methane, some did not breathe at all. But they all had one thing in common. They wanted to see what would happen to the last Dracovian prince. Kyung entered the chamber with Hana on one side and Taiyang on the other. Cameras from 1,000 news organizations recorded every moment. The weight of galactic attention was almost physical. The council judges sat on a raised platform. There were 7 of them, representing the 7 major civilizations of the galaxy. In the center sat Judge Mirantha, a being from the coral species who had been a judge for 300 years. This trial will determine the fate of Crown Prince Kyung of the Dracovian Empire, Mirantha announced in a voice that echoed through the chamber. He stands accused of crimes against the galaxy by virtue of his position in the royal family. The prosecution will present their case first. The Velen prosecutor was a female named Shara. She had 3 of the 4 arms that all Velens had. The 4th had been lost in an accident, and she wore the missing arm as a badge of honor. She began her presentation with images. Terrible images of what the Dracovians had done. Planets stripped bare of resources. Cities destroyed. Populations enslaved. The images went on for an hour, each one more horrific than the last. Many observers in the chamber wept openly. Hana felt tears on her own face. These crimes were committed by the Dracovian Empire, Shara said, her voice shaking with emotion. The same empire that Prince Kyung was born to rule. He was crown prince. He lived in luxury while millions suffered. He ate food grown by slaves. He wore clothes made by prisoners. He benefited from every single crime his people committed. She turned to point at Kyung. He claims he opposed the empire, but where is the evidence? Where are the slaves he freed? Where are the planets he saved? What did he actually do except talk? And for that talk, his father punished him. Does that make him a hero? Or does it make him a coward who spoke against evil but did nothing to stop it? It was a powerful argument. Hana saw many in the chamber nodding. Even some of the judges looked convinced. When it was time for the defense, Admiral Su-young stood. The prosecution has shown us the crimes of an empire. No one here denies those crimes happened. No one here claims they were acceptable. But this trial is not about the Dracovian Empire. This trial is about one individual. And the question we must answer is simple. Is this individual guilty of crimes, or is he a victim of the same empire we all condemn? She activated a holographic display. These are genetic records from Prince Kyung's body. They show modifications made by Emperor Vorkath. These modifications were designed to make the royal family stronger and longer lived. But they had an unintended side effect. They increased empathy. They made Prince Kyung neurologically incapable of ignoring the suffering of others. Medical experts came forward to explain the modifications. They showed brain scans. They explained how Kyung's neural pathways were fundamentally different from other Dracovians. His father had accidentally created a prince who would feel the pain of every slave and victim. Now I will show you what Prince Kyung did with this empathy. Soo-young continued. She played audio recordings from Kyung's personal logs. His voice, younger and more desperate, arguing with his father, begging him to stop the expansion, pleading for mercy for conquered species. She showed records of Kyung secretly freeing groups of slaves and helping them escape. She showed evidence of him diverting resources to occupied planets to ease suffering. She showed communications with resistance groups where he passed them information about imperial military movements. He was not a coward who only talked, Soo-young said firmly. He was a prince who used his limited power to save lives while knowing that if he was caught, he would face his father's wrath. And eventually he was caught. His punishment was 800 years of torture in stasis, conscious, aware, thirsty. For 8 centuries, the chamber was completely silent. How many of us could endure even 1 year of such torture? Soo-young asked. How many of us would keep our sanity? Prince Kyung endured for 800 years. And when humans finally freed him, what was his first action? To offer information about hidden Dracovians so that justice could be served. He chose transparency over survival. He chose to help his enemies find his own people, because he believes in justice more than he believes in protecting his species. She turned to face the judges. If we execute this individual, what message do we send? We tell the galaxy that heritage is destiny. We say that it does not matter what you do or what you believe. If you are born to the wrong species, you are guilty. Is that the justice we want? Shara stood up for rebuttal. The defense paints Prince Kyung as a hero, but let us remember that he could have done more. He was crown prince. He had armies at his command. If he truly opposed the empire, why did he not start a civil war? Why did he not use force to stop his father? Kyung asked permission to speak. The judges granted it. He stood slowly, his great form drawing every eye. The prosecutor is right, Kyung said, his translated voice clear and strong. I could have started a civil war. I thought about it many times. But civil war would have killed billions. The empire had weapons that could destroy entire solar systems. If the royal family fought among themselves, they would have used those weapons. I calculated that more people would die in a civil war than I could save through quiet resistance. So you chose the easy path, Shara accused. I chose the path with the least bloodshed, Kyung replied. Perhaps I was wrong. Perhaps I should have been willing to sacrifice billions for the chance to end the empire sooner. But I could not do it. My modified genetics made me feel too much. I felt the potential death of every being that might die in a civil war. The weight was too much. He lowered his head. Maybe that makes me guilty. Guilty of being too afraid to take drastic action. Guilty of caring too much about life to risk a war. I do not know. That is for this court to decide. The trial continued for 3 more days. Experts testified. Victims shared their stories. 2 years passed after the trial. They were busy years full of work and discovery. Kyung kept every promise he had made. The first task was finding the hidden Dracovians. Kyung's genetic memory contained coordinates for stasis chambers scattered across 300 different planets. Each location required careful planning. Some chambers were in dangerous places. Some were guarded by old security systems. Some were on worlds now inhabited by species who hated Dracovians. Hana led many of the recovery missions. She had been promoted and now commanded her own survey team. Taeyang worked as security coordinator for the entire project. Hyun designed specialized equipment for safely transporting stasis chambers. Jiwon developed medical protocols for reviving Dracovians who had been asleep for centuries. They found 2,347 Dracovians. Each one was revived carefully, evaluated medically, and then given a choice. They could face trial for any crimes they committed before stasis, or they could work toward redemption by helping rebuild what the Empire destroyed. Some chose trial and were found guilty. They received sentences based on their actions. Some were imprisoned. A few were executed for particularly terrible crimes, but most chose to work toward redemption. The process was not easy. Many species did not want Dracovians alive at all, regardless of their choices. There were protests. There were angry debates. Some planets refused to allow Dracovian workers. Even when those workers could help restore damaged environments, Kyung attended every trial. He testified about the Empire's structure and who had held what power. He helped investigators understand old records. He translated ancient Dracovian texts, and he spoke to each revived Dracovian personally, urging them to choose redemption over pride. But his most important work was on Talvex 9. The dead planet where Hana had found him became his primary focus. Inside the archive beneath the collapsed temple, Kyung had found something his people once possessed but had forgotten: environmental restoration technology. The Dracovians had not always been conquerors. In their earliest history, they had been explorers who helped planets thrive. The technology they developed could repair damaged ecosystems, purify poisoned water, and restore extinct species. But as the Empire grew, this technology was abandoned in favor of weapons and extraction tools. Kyung proposed using the restoration technology on Talvex 9 itself. "My father destroyed this world," he said in a presentation to the Galactic Council. "He stripped it of resources until it died. I want to prove that what was destroyed can be healed. I want Talvex 9 to bloom again." The Council approved the project, but with conditions. It would be a collaborative effort. Scientists from 40 different species would work together. Earth would provide coordination. The Velans would oversee security to ensure the technology was not weaponized, and Kyung would serve as technical advisor. Hana volunteered to lead the Earth contingent. She could not imagine missing this chance to see a dead world reborn. The first phase took 6 months. They mapped every square kilometer of Talvex 9. They analyzed the soil, the atmosphere, the magnetic fields. They studied the planet's history to understand what it had been before the Empire destroyed it. The second phase was more difficult. The restoration technology required massive amounts of energy. They built fusion reactors at the planet's poles. They constructed orbital mirrors to direct sunlight. They planted thousands of atmospheric processors across the surface. Kyung worked alongside everyone else. His great size and strength made him valuable for heavy labor. But more than that, his knowledge of Dracovian science was irreplaceable. He could read the old technical manuals. He understood the theory behind the restoration systems. He could troubleshoot when things went wrong. One evening, after a particularly difficult day of debugging a water purification system, Hana found Kyung sitting alone on a cliff overlooking a dry ocean basin. The 3 suns were setting, painting the crystal sand in shades of orange and purple. "Do you mind company?" she asked. "Never yours," Kyung replied. She sat down beside him, her small human form looking tiny next to his massive dragon body. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Kyung spoke. "Do you remember the first day we met? When I begged you for water?" "Of course," Hana said. "How could I forget?" "I have thought about that moment every day since then," Kyung said quietly. "I was dying. I had been thirsty for 800 years. I had given up hope of ever feeling water on my tongue again. And then a human girl I had never met gave me water without hesitation. You needed help," Hana said simply. "But you did not know if I was safe. You did not know my story. For all you knew, I was a monster who deserved his punishment. Yet you helped anyway. Why?" Hana thought about her answer. "Because I looked at you and saw a living being in pain. That was enough. Everything else, your species, your history, your crimes or lack of crimes, all of that came later. In that moment, you were just someone who needed water." Kyung's golden eyes reflected the setting suns. "That simple act changed everything. It changed me. It changed my people's future. It changed how the galaxy thinks about justice and redemption. All because you saw me as an individual first." "Humans have a saying," Hana told him. "We are measured not by how we treat the powerful, but by how we treat those who have nothing to offer us. You had nothing to offer me in that temple. You were weak and dying, but you were still worthy of compassion." "I have been trying to understand humanity for 2 years," Kyung said. "I have studied your history, your literature, your philosophy. And I think I finally understand what makes you different. Other species, including mine, see the galaxy as something to conquer or fear. Humans see it as something to be part of. You do not want to own everything. You want to connect with everything." "Maybe," Hana said. "Or maybe we are just young and foolish and have not learned to be afraid yet." "No," Kyung said firmly. "It is not foolishness. It is strength. The courage to show mercy requires more power than the courage to destroy. My people learned to destroy. You taught me to rebuild. 6 months later, the restoration technology was ready to activate. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered on Talvex 9 to watch. The entire project team stood together near the main control center. Kyung was given the honor of starting the sequence. His claw rested on the activation button. For 800 years, my father's crime stood as a monument to empire, he said. Today we begin to erase that monument. Today we prove that even the worst damage can be healed if we work together. He pressed the button. The atmospheric processors hummed to life. The orbital mirrors adjusted their angles. The fusion reactors poured energy into the restoration network. For a moment, nothing visible happened. Then rain began to fall. It started as a light drizzle. Then it became a steady rain. Then a downpour. Water that had been locked in deep ice deposits was being liberated and redistributed. Clouds formed across the planet's surface. Lightning flashed. The dry ocean basin where Hana and Kyung stood began to fill. Water trickled down from higher elevations. Small streams became rivers. Rivers flowed into the basin. Within hours, a lake had formed. Within days, it would be an ocean. People cheered. Scientists embraced each other. Even the serious Velen observers allowed themselves small smiles. Hana found herself crying. Taeyang put his arm around her shoulders. You did it, little sister. You saved a planet. We did it, Hana corrected. All of us together. Kyung knelt down so his head was level with the humans around him. I want to say something. When I was sealed in that stasis field, I was filled with despair. I thought my life had been wasted. I thought my people's evil would be their only legacy. I wanted to die. He looked at Hana. But you gave me water. And with that water, you gave me hope. You showed me that individuals matter, that choices matter, that it is never too late to choose a better path. Because of you, 2,000 Dracovians have a chance at redemption. Because of you, this planet will live again. You did most of the work, Hana protested. I provided knowledge, Kyung said, but you provided the reason to use that knowledge. You provided the vision of what we could become. Every Dracovian working on this project learned from your example. Every species here today is cooperating because humans believed it was possible. The rain continued to fall. It would rain on Talvex 9 for 6 months as the water cycle reestablished itself. Then the next phase would begin, introducing plant life, then insects, then animals. The full restoration would take decades, but it had begun. As the celebration continued, Hyan approached Kyung. The young engineer who had once feared the dragon now considered him a friend. So what will you do after this project is complete? He asked. There is much more work to do, Kyung replied. More Dracovians to find. More testimonies to give. More amends to make. But I also have another dream. What dream? Hana asked. I want to build a school here on Talvex 9, a place where young people from every species can come to learn. Not just science and technology, but also history and philosophy. I want them to learn about the empire my people built and why it failed. I want them to learn about the mercy that humans showed me and why it succeeded. I want every generation to know that the choice between conquest and compassion is a choice they will have to make. A university, Admiral Suyong said, joining the conversation.